Hello and welcome to an Infinity the Game battle report. In this game, we are once again playing Dashat Company versus USAriadna, and the scenario is Supremacy. If you're wondering what that image on the screen is, please rest assured that my opponent has bought a particularly spicy list for this event, but we'll get to that in a moment. As before, this was the second game I got to play. It was a 3-round event, but I only got to play in 2 of them for a recent event at our local game store, testing out the reinforcements rules in their intended environment as an ITS tournament variant for the first time. So as before, this was my list for this scenario. I've spoken about this at some length in my previous video, so I would encourage you to just go back to that and to have a look at what I spoke about here. There are some things in retrospect I would change, particularly for this scenario. The Gulam NCO with grenade launcher ended up being very useful in decapitation because it was a spec fire piece, but it's really being quite inconsistent. Like, I'm trying to spend orders and be efficient, but I think this is not quite working as a group 2 piece. There's just too little going on here. Otherwise, we have a quite good, lean, efficient. It's 5 troopers, but it's a very solid reinforcement pool. And then this is just a collection of Dashat good stuff. Diggers, Libertos, Magari Brigade, Rafik, McMurray. There's tons of stuff in here that is capable of just overperforming and winning a game. The only thing I'd like to cut is the comlink, because comlink profiles suck, but I have to take one for reinforcements, so here we are. Now, much more interesting is this list that my opponent is playing. This is actually a list that I wrote, but I wrote it to my opponent's specifications after he asked me to write him a USAriadna list that included the maximum possible number of bikes. And this is the best that I've been able to do. What we have in the bottom pool here is the leanest reinforcement group I can make for Ariadna. I would rather have one more troop, but I needed to put more bikes in the main list. So it's Equip Mirage, Margot, and Duroc, a Moblot Engineer, which is fine for like acquisition, and then a Beast Hunter. This is the like leanest 4-point. I don't think I'm able to write. I couldn't write an Ariadne reinforcement pool with less than 4 points, less than 4 units in it. The list otherwise is a 3-person core link of the Unknown Ranger, a Marauder Lieutenant, and a Marauder, or somewhere around here there should be a AP Sniper Rifle. So yep, a Marauder AP Sniper Rifle, so these 3 troopers. We then have a Haris of a Maverick, and a 112, 3 Desperados, and then another Maverick, a Desperado, and then the Grunt Specialist Operative. So this is something like, I think, 9 bikes. And I wrote this for him, and I actually looked at it and I went like, this might be really good, or at least like okay. The big problem is that it's 9 silhouette 4 bases. Just deploying this is nightmarish. But there's an absolute ton of smoke, and there are 3 high quality AP Spitfires in this list. Like, those are Mavericks, which means they have Mimetism and MSV1. There are 3 Mimetism MSV1 Spitfires in this list, 2 of which are Burst 5. And there's an MSV1 Sniper Rifle, plus 1 Burst, so it's Burst 4. Like, this is good. Like, everything in here is good. There are multiple specialists. The specialists are very fast. There are tons of orders because of tactical awareness and impetuous if you want. Like, I would kind of just unironically play this if I had any confidence at all that the maps I was playing it on would enable me to deploy this many bikes. So credit to my opponent Owen in this case for, mixing genius with madness, as he is so often wont to do, and coming up with this as an idea. So this time around, I win the lieutenant role, and I pick to deploy second on this side, and I'm actually very comfortable with that. I am seriously almost would consider hard picking going second, except that I know the list that Owen is playing, and it terrifies me. But I'm very comfortable going second in this case. You will recall I did a battle report that was Hackislam versus Varuna in Supremacy, and I chose to go first. And it's just easier to play Supremacy going second if you think you can survive. And reinforcements is going to significantly impact this. Reinforcements, I feel, in a scenario like Supremacy is something that you can really build a plan around. And I like that. As much as I have some critiques of reinforcements and their implementation, many of the specifics of reinforcements I have criticisms of, I think the fact that they cause you to think in a different way about the game and really embrace the kind of like 3-turn brain rather than the 1-turn brain that you like. I'm very guilty of playing 300-point regular Infinity games with a turn 1 brain, where it's like, I'm going to win this game on the first turn, and then the next 2 turns are just going to be follow up on that attrition advantage that I accomplish. In this case, again, reinforcements has really made me think more about the games in terms of how I'm going to win over 3 turns rather than 1. And that is really cool. So my plan here is to survive and use the fact that I have the Magari Brigade, which will just bomb points into a zone. My plan is to press as many buttons as I can. Once those points are scored in Supremacy, they can't be taken away from me because you share buttons. I'm going to use the Magaruba Guard on a turn, whether it's turn 1 or turn 2, to bomb into a zone and score that for myself, getting myself 2 scenario points. And then eventually my reinforcements are going to arrive, and I'm going to use them to bomb into a zone and score me another 2 points. So my plan is to, at minimum, just win by scoring 8 of the available 10 points. And unless he kills or pins back my Magaruba Guard, there's not a ton that my opponent can do about that. He is beholden to really like put the boot into me in order to stop me from executing on that game plan. And that is interesting, although it's also worth noting how much the potential advantage can shift thanks to the predictability of reinforcements under some circumstances. Anyway, let's talk about deployment and how the game actually played. So what Owen's chosen to do here, he's actually chosen not to deploy all his Unknown Ranger, Marauder core together, because he just wants his lieutenant to be in a safe spot. His lieutenant is hanging out back here, the sniper is hanging out back here, and I actually don't hate this. That sniper, normally you would not choose to not link a sniper, but because the Marauder is native +1 burst, it's a burst 3 sniper, MSV1, it can just be hanging out by itself if it has to. And that lets Owen reserve the Unknown Ranger, which will come down here. Otherwise, it's bikes. Look, there are lots of bikes. We've got one Desperado here, the Haris team here, another Desperado here, another Desperado here, the Maverick AP Spitfire there, and I think there's a Desperado hanging out somewhere else as well. But there's tons of bikes, and Owen's decision to go first actually does make some sense in this context, because this is kind of the cost of the meme, right? Is like, look at this Desperado, for example. It's right out there in the open. He's going to move it forward, but that just being out there in the open is something that happens when you have these silhouette 4 models. Now, it can be surprisingly difficult to shoot a Desperado to death because they throw smoke on 16s, their mimetism in cover, but it's, yeah, fair enough, it's the cost of this list. The Haris team defends itself surprisingly well because it's often able to fire, it fires on burst 2, but the Haris team's not really throwing much smoke in ARO because they don't have native smoke grenades, so it's just relying on ballistic skill attacks. But anyway, for my part, I've got the Libertos on picket duty. So we've got a Libertos in its mine here. The mine's at ground level. We have the SMG Libertos here. It's intending to kind of like be able to look in this direction so it can cover me from like bike penetrations. Bikes are able to climb upstairs on this map, but what Owen is probably going to do is take the low ground if he has the option of doing so. So we've got a digger hanging out prone back here and a digger hanging out prone back here on the staircase. So the digger's got nice cover there and kind of like nice cover there. And they're very good picket pieces in this case, because even with like burst 5 assault pistols, it's challenging for any of the bikes that Owen has to punch through them. The Magaruba is my reserve, and she's come down here. We have my Lieutenant Golem on this rooftop, my Hacker Golem on this rooftop, and Tariq Mansouri hanging out down here. The Rafik is here, and it's linked with this digger in order to make sure that the digger has cover. And then likewise, we have the Comlink Golem here linked with this digger in order to make sure that the digger has cover. And giving the diggers cover really significantly improves their ability to avoid being just annihilated by Desperados, which is going to be very important to the defense on the first turn. The NCO Golem is hanging out here and will not do very much for the entire game. So Owen goes first, and his priority, he's going to make some jabs with Desperados, but his priority actually is just to unpack his entire list so that nothing he has is hugely exposed. And so the turn, as a result, almost plays out kind of like a 40k turn, where he's got all of these irregulars, and they all just spend their own orders. They just spend their own orders, and they move forward. So we have one Desperado sort of moves up, another Desperado moves up around here, this Desperado like moves up around here, and then it moves up to there. None of them are impetuous. He wants them all to have cover and to be very difficult to kill and annoying. And then the Haris team moves like up and around here and kind of just spreads out. From there, we basically just have Owen attempting to launch some punches with Desperados. So one of them will sort of move up here, but it'll actually stop. And the other one of them will push through here, and it will fight. It'll, in the same order, it will detonate the mine back here and engage this digger. Now, the digger in this case elects to throw grenades, and he does that because the Desperado is out of cover, and I want to face Owen in a way that incentivizes him to shoot a chain rifle, because the digger can always survive a chain rifle. The digger is 2 wound piece, it will never die to a chain rifle. So by throwing a grenade, what I want Owen to do is not fire his pistols at me, because the pistols could kill me. So what he does, though, he makes the smart decision, which is to fire his pistols anyway, because they are burst 5 and is the only way to kill the digger. And the digger actually crits, Owen crits back, but then the mine explodes and kills the desperado. So that's a really nice outcome, and it's the kind of outcome that you can really only get with a piece like a digger, particularly when you link it. If I hadn't linked the digger, there's a very good chance that, I mean, that, as it was, we both crit, but there's a very good chance that Desperado just completely annihilates digger when the digger doesn't have any cover. And that's actually going to kind of be the bulk of Owen's turn. He is going to have a crack at one of the. I think another biker is going to come out and across this rooftop and have a go after McMurray, but McMurray will get the smoke down. At this point, we have one of those conversations where it's like, and he's Fizz 16, so he throws smoke on 19s. And this model is 27 points, you say, kind of thing. But ultimately, this is a good defensive turn for me. The most important thing for me in terms of deployment was keeping the Magaruba Guard from being exposed to Owen's Mimetism AP Spitfires, because if I can just, like I said, the purpose of the Magaruba this game is to drop 105 points into a zone on a turn of my choosing and score me 2 points. If it does anything other than that, that's a plus. That is all that it has to do, which means it has to survive the first turn. So it's deployed incredibly conservatively, but my defense holds, and I'm able to progress into my first turn. So we are going to make a few different pushes on this turn, but really let's just focus on the Magaruba first, because other stuff is just going to be positioning. This Libertos, for example, it's going to come out and try and shoot the Desperado down here, but it will fail. Like basically nothing else that I do will succeed in killing anything, but I will get into zones, and the Magaruba is going to come up and around here, up and around here. It's going to fight some bikes, and it's going to end up standing here on ground level in suppressive fire. Now, my plan for it is that, look, if it dies next turn, it dies next turn. That's not the end of the world. But I'm going to give it the best chance of surviving possible. I'm not going to trigger Owen's reinforcements, because Owen's reinforcements will just annihilate it if it's on that side of the field. So we're just going to leave it here in suppressive fire. That is actually like 100% of the stuff that happens this turn. I use the remainder of the orders that I have just to move things into this zone here to guarantee that I score it. McMurray is going to come up and around. I think he's going to end up here just to ensure that I score this zone. And that's basically it. Like the Magaruba Guard shoots some things. I go pew pew. I kill a couple of bikes. But I had a good defensive turn. I didn't really lose anything significant. So I don't need to step on the gas super hard. I need to get scenario points. And so I do. I end this turn with 2 scenario points in the bag, and the map looking like this. This digger has moved forward. We've got the Rafik hanging out here. I've been completely unable to kill this. I think this Libertos has spent 2 or 3 orders trying to deal with this Desperado. I'm going to keep getting that wrong. I think we traded chain rifles like 3 times and just nobody hurt anyone. And at that point, I'm like, okay, fine. I can't kill this thing. I don't care. It's worth 7 points. So you can't see it, unfortunately. This is a terrible angle picture, but yeah, the Magaruba Guard is hanging out down prone here. So it's Owen's turn now, and he sets himself about the task of killing the Magaruba Guard. And to do that, he elects to do some smoke shooting. And I actually really like this. This is a thing that his list can do. He's down, the AP Spitfire Desperado on this flank is down, but he still has the Unknown Ranger. So some smoke comes down here, and the Unknown Ranger moves up to engage. Now, the first face-to-face roll here, we shoot, I crit, but he passes both of his saves. I'm rolling for 2s, by the way, because I'm at neg 12. I'm at neg 6 from smoke, neg 3 from cover, neg 3 from mimetism. But 3 dice needing 2s to crit, I've made worse face-to-face rolls. And by declaring suppressive fire, I impose a -3 penalty on the Unknown Ranger. Now, for his part, this is a point where Owen makes a mistake. We have this first face-to-face roll, and when measuring range, we are at like 10¼ inches, which is, I wasn't game to fire a flamethrower the first time we have this face-to-face roll, but I'm game to fire my flamethrowers the second time. And so what Owen does is he walks backwards away from me and he declares ballistic skill attack. And he should not have done that, basically. What he should have done is he should have walked safely away from the flamethrower, set up in a new position, and then begun firing. Instead, what he does is he walks away, he fires at me, he gives me the opportunity to declare my template attack back, and I flamethrower the Unknown Ranger to death. It's a damage 16, 15 heavy flamethrower, which can kill even the armor 4 Unknown Ranger. The Unknown Ranger puts 2 wounds on the Magaruba Guard, but does not kill it. Owen then brings around the sniper, has some face-to-face rolls, but the range is kind of like bad. It's a very inconclusive engagement. Sniper pulls back, goes prone, and that leaves the Magariba Guard alive going into my second turn. And that's basically the disaster case. Like the Unknown Ranger, if it had just pulled back to 12 inches, it could have set up basically behind this staircase here, and it could have just kept having this face-to-face roll until I was dead. At that point, because I'd broken suppressive, I was still in a 0 range band, I wasn't imposing the suppressive penalty on him, I would really have to begin dodging, and the Magariba Guard dodges on like 11s or something. Sure, okay, he's firing on with -6 from the smoke, he's firing on 7s, but he can just keep shooting me. He can just keep shooting me until I'm dead, and there's nowhere for me to go. That AP Spitfire can just keep going until I'm all the way down. The other option that he could have considered is get smoke all the way up to the Magariba Guard and then run into CC with it, because the Unknown Ranger is very good in CC. But I think shooting the choice that Owen made, the shooting choice, was the right call because the Unknown Ranger has a T2 CCW, not anything with armor piercing. And as dangerous as the T2 CCW is, it is always going to need to wound the Magariba twice. T2 is not hugely efficient at killing 3 wound models, and it's going to take him the odds of him killing me that way were potentially lower than the odds of him killing me with his AP Spitfire. So that's kind of a fair enough situation, but regardless, the worst has happened and the Magariba Guard is alive. And what that means is that my turn is very, very simple. The Magariba Guard does absolutely nothing, and the entirety of my turn is spent pressing buttons. Because the game is sort of unfortunately a foregone conclusion now. So this Ghulam hacker jumps over here, runs around to here, presses this button, runs around to here, presses this button, and then sort of pulls back in this direction. And that means that all I need to do, I actually think I move the Rafik forward. I do actually kill this Desperado, but this Rafik is going to run forward around to here and press this button. And that's the entirety of my turn. All I do is press buttons because I am already in a position to score another 2 points. So at this juncture, I'm on 3 points for consoles, 2 points for the first round, 2 points for the second round. I'm already on 7. I think the last thing that happens is that McMurrow will move over the halfway line. He might do this next turn to accomplish net undermine. But this is basically, this is it. This is the game. Because even though Owen's reinforcements are going to arrive and Durok is going to land basically on top of the Magariba Guard, going to run into close combat, it's going to rip the hood off of the Magariba Guard, pull the pilot out and beat her to death against the chassis, all that does is it kills the Magariba after she's already scored me 4 points. And the very next turn, my reinforcements are going to arrive, and literally all they're going to do is they're going to... Actually, what's going to happen is they're going to just drop off the table because I don't need them, because I have enough points to move forward and just occupy this quadrant as is, because Owen is behind on attrition. But if Owen had been up on attrition, all I would need to do is basically drop my entire reinforcement pool on a line here and run forward. And if some of them survive to get enough points in zones, that would have won me the game. So the kind of bit of a damp squib to end, because I had a game plan, I was able to execute on it, and that execution meant that the game ended something like 10 points to Dashat, and I think it would have been Owen, I think, pressed 2 buttons and did a classified, which means he is on 4 points. So 10-4 to Dashat Company, and that's assuming Owen did press... No, sorry, 3-4. 10-3 to Dashat Company, because Owen pressed 2 buttons and did a classified, but he was never able to score zones, and basically that's off the back of the Magariba Guard's survival. But even if the Magariba Guard had died during Owen's second turn, that still puts me in a way where I can very comfortably and kind of predictably play to a 7-3 win. Now, what do you do to stop that? I think you have to actually just play very, very aggressively. But that's kind of always been the Supremacy way. Supremacy, if you're going first in Supremacy, it has been a game of, like, you have to hit your opponent hard enough that your subsequent board pressure and attritional advantage carries you through. It's difficult to conservatively play Supremacy, although that is kind of the other option, is if you choose to play Supremacy from going first, if you play Supremacy conservatively, what that means is that you're looking for like a 5-point win or a 6-point win, where your goal is to press 2 or 3 buttons, do your classified, and then secure the quadrants exactly once. And that's actually can be totally okay. In an ITS event, there is really nothing wrong with scoring 6 points or even 5 points. If you can score that many, that still and you win, that still gives you maximum possible tournament points, which is totally fine. Like, it's better to have more scenario objective points for your tiebreakers, but it isn't essential. So like there is a conservative option in Supremacy, but I think reinforcements are going to, yeah, really kind of upend this a little bit, where the first player is beholden to use their reinforcements aggressively, but if those reinforcements don't arrive until turn 3, you have to have a very self-sufficient order pool for your reinforcements. There are all these like tensions there that I quite liked going second with reinforcements and playing a 3-turn game, but my experiences having gone first with reinforcements is that I don't yet know how to play that. Now, going first with reinforcements was versus factions like Varuna, where it's just difficult to go first in any case. But yeah, something of a challenge there. We're still learning, we're still figuring it out. So reinforcements, I would say, had a very limited impact on this game. And actually, if we look back this game and last game, I think you can say my reinforcements did nothing 2 games in a row. The format for me was effectively playing 250 points versus my opponent's list, and that's not. But I think that is probably a little disingenuous because, as much as in practice what happened is that my reinforcement pools did nothing either game, they literally didn't spend an order either game. What they did is their existence allowed me to play the game in a different way. And that alone is really interesting because I normally play I don't tend to play conservatively out the gate. I tend to I enjoy games where it's a sort of like slow attritional accrual of advantage. But in Infinity has kind of taught me to, if possible, deliver a knockout punch on turn 1 because you can just win a 300-point game of Infinity that way. And the fact that reinforcements is like unlocking these old memories of slow, careful, attritional, defensive play is really valuable. Like, that's actually an interesting and novel tactical experience, which is not something I expected. And it's definitely not what I expected reading the online discourse, which has been entirely around, and like I think it sort of tells here a little bit that if you look at the initial impressions people have, it is of people entirely playing the game in the classic 300 points way of trying to deliver a knockout punch on turn 1, triggering their opponent's reinforcements counterattack and trigger their reinforcements annihilate their opponent's reinforcements, re-establishing that status quo, and it's just like if you played a 300-point game, but the punching took 2 turns. And the games that I played at this event were very, very different to that experience because I went second in both cases, and I played a very intentional, very conservative, very 3-turn game where the fact that attacking with a 250 point list with 12 troopers is really challenging played to my ability to defend. So I'm really grateful actually for the experience of these 2 games. Even though my reinforcements did nothing, the psychological effect of their presence and existence let me change the way I play in a way that I can guarantee you I would not have if this was just a 350 point event using sort of just the same scenarios. So that's really cool. I'm actually really optimistic about that. I maintain a significant number of criticisms about the specifics of implementation of reinforcements. There is actually if the forums aren't down right now, they have been a lot over the last couple of days, but if you're interested, there is a thread called Reinforcements Feedback that Corvus Belli themselves started that I've posted both my own thoughts and a number of the thoughts of players from this event, if you're interested in reading those. But I'll leave that for that thread. I don't think that needs to be rehashed here. This was really interesting. I'm very glad to have had the opportunity to. I ran this event. I got to play 2 rounds. It's always potluck if I get to play in events that I run, but I did this time around. So big thanks to both my opponents. Very interesting games. Really, really enjoyable to just have that tactical, like that novel tactical experience, even if in a sense it's some old things made new. So that wraps up the report for the event that happened this most recent Sunday. I hope you enjoyed these. As always, if you're enjoying the things that I do, you can support me via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description. But otherwise, hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.